Ilara's life had always been filled with strange, unexplained events. Orphaned at a young age, she and her older sister Marin had grown up with nothing but each other, forging an unbreakable bond as they navigated foster homes and the endless tide of strangers who drifted in and out of their lives. Life had never been easy, but Ilara had always felt a strange sense of purpose, a quiet knowledge that she was destined for something beyond the ordinary. When Ilara first discovered she was pregnant, it was nothing short of a shock. She had been in a fleeting relationship that had ended abruptly, leaving her more alone than ever. Yet, despite the whirlwind of emotions that followed, she couldn't shake the deep, almost otherworldly connection she felt with the child growing inside her. There were times she'd wake in the night to vivid dreams, images of distant lands and ancient faces that felt as real as her waking life. In the months leading up to her delivery, Ilara felt increasingly disconnected from the world around her. Her body changed rapidly, her senses heightened, and she could swear that the child inside her could communicate with her in strange, subtle ways. She would feel a sudden warmth in her chest, a soft pulse of reassurance, almost as if her baby was comforting her from within. As her due date approached, Ilara grew more anxious. There were whispers among the few people who knew her, rumors about the unnatural speed at which her pregnancy progressed, about the way she seemed to glow in certain lights. She began to feel like she was being watched, as though her child was attracting an unknown force. Finally, the day came, and Ilara found herself in the maternity hospital with Marin by her side, the two of them equally uncertain and afraid. Marin, though outwardly strong, was battling a deep fear of the unknown. She couldn't shake the unsettling feeling that something far larger than either of them was at play. As Ilara was admitted, Dr. Jensen was assigned to her case, and right from the beginning, he sensed something strange. When he glanced at her medical history, he noticed anomalies in her blood work and hormonal levels that defied explanation. He tried to dismiss it as stress-related but couldn't shake the feeling that something was deeply unusual about her condition. Then, the contractions began. The labor was unusually intense, far more so than anything Dr. Jensen had seen. The monitors around her spiked and flickered, as though struggling to keep up with her body's energy. Each contraction seemed to resonate through the room like an invisible wave, making the air feel heavy. The nurses exchanged nervous glances, unsure of how to respond, and Dr. Jensen ordered everyone to keep calm. But the uncertainty gnawed at them, and the team instinctively knew they were dealing with something far from ordinary. Then came the first twist. As Dr. Jensen examined Ilara, he noticed markings on her skin, small, faint symbols that looked like ancient script, appearing along her arms and neck as her contractions intensified. He tried to brush it off as a trick of the light, but as he continued to observe, he realized the markings were real and seemed to glow faintly with a silvery hue. The doctors and nurses looked at each other, unsure if they were all seeing the same thing. Marin, who noticed the markings as well, clutched Ilara's hand tighter, a chill spreading through her. Dr. Jensen's mind raced. He knew he had to call in a specialist, someone who had experience with unexplained phenomena. Without much hesitation, he dialed Dr. Volkov, an enigmatic physician known for his research in parapsychology and unexplained biological events. If anyone could make sense of this, it was him. By the time Dr. Volkov arrived, Ilara's labor had reached a fever pitch, and the markings on her skin had grown more defined. He entered the room, his presence commanding, and surveyed the scene with intense focus. As he approached Ilara, he whispered something to her in a language no one else understood, something ancient and soothing. Ilara's breathing slowed slightly, her gaze meeting his, and for a moment, she felt an inexplicable sense of familiarity. "Do you know what's happening to me?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. Dr. Volkov hesitated before answering. "There are some forces that science cannot explain, Elara. Your child. She is no ordinary child. She is a bridge." "A bridge?" Elara repeated, her heart pounding. "Yes," he replied, his gaze intense. "A bridge between worlds, between the past and future. There are ancient spirits that have long sought to return to our world, and they can only come through those who are open to them." Before Elara could respond, another contraction hit, this time so powerful it seemed to shake the very foundations of the hospital. The lights flickered, and for a brief, eerie moment, the power went out. The room was plunged into darkness, and everyone froze, listening to the haunting silence that followed. When the lights came back on, something had changed. Elara's body had begun to glow faintly, and Dr. Volkov's face was a mixture of awe and reverence. The air around them felt charged, as though they were standing on the threshold of another dimension. Then came another twist. As Elara gave one final push, the child entered the world, her first cry piercing the air like a song of ages. But as the doctors looked at her, they realized this was no ordinary newborn. Her eyes were wide open, a deep, luminous green, and held a wisdom that no child should possess. She turned her gaze to each person in the room, and everyone who looked into her eyes felt a profound, inexplicable connection, as though they were seeing their own soul reflected back at them. But it wasn't just her gaze. As Dr. Volkov held her, he felt an intense wave of energy flow through him. Visions flashed in his mind, images of ancient temples, sacred rituals, and otherworldly landscapes. He realized that this child carried the memories of countless lifetimes. A consciousness that had existed long before recorded history. In that moment, he knew this child was part of a lineage that transcended the physical world. She was a reincarnation of an ancient spirit, a being of immense power and wisdom, sent to guide humanity in a time of great need. As Elara held her daughter for the first time, she felt a flood of memories, as though a door had been opened within her mind. She saw visions of past lives, of worlds she had never known yet felt deeply connected to. She realized that she, too, was part of this lineage, that her life had been orchestrated by forces beyond her understanding to bring this child into the world. Dr. Jensen, who had been watching in silent awe, finally spoke. "What? What does this mean for us? For the world?" Dr. Volkov looked at him, his expression grave. "This child is a harbinger of change. She has come to awaken something in all of us, to bridge the gap between the old world and the new. But with her birth comes great responsibility. She must be protected." And so, a pact was made in that room, a vow of secrecy and guardianship. The doctors and nurses agreed to keep Elara's story confidential, understanding that the world was not yet ready for such a revelation. But they also knew that this child, this bridge between worlds, was a gift to humanity, a beacon of hope in a time of darkness. In the weeks that followed, Elara and her daughter settled into a quiet life, watched over by Marin and Dr. Volkov, who became their confidant and guide. The child grew rapidly, her powers and wisdom unfolding in ways that left even Dr. Volkov in awe. She seemed to possess a deep understanding of the world around her, a knowledge of things beyond the reach of ordinary minds, and though she was still a child, those who knew her sensed that she carried the weight of an ancient prophecy, a promise to guide humanity into a new era.